I know. I'll keep waving anyway. I don't mind. No, no, it's not that big a deal. All right, we're changing everything, but not that big a deal. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no big thing. I mean, it's and yeah, this part I definitely shouldn't say. And if it doesn't go well, I mean, like I'll have to go back to teaching high school or whatever. But let's not. No one heard that, did they? Yeah, for sure. Yep, yeah, I'm dealing with it every day. I'm ready.
This is TWIP. Here we go. Oop. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry. Thank you, Joe Kaliva. Kaliva. We didn't have sound because I was muted on purpose. But the other thing that I want to talk about, let me just say that again. So the main reason that I have Chris Smith on the show is I want to talk to him about the idea of trade shows in general, but then also where Out of Chicago is going because he's morphing it into something different and amazing. So we're going to talk about that on this live stream, as well as a bunch of other things. So this is going to be cool. Thanks, Adam. That was me. I hadn't clicked a button that, there's a button that says MUTE on it. And now I know what it means. So when it's on, apparently you can't hear me. So, all right. Well, cool. Let's do this. So sitting in the wings, like I said, is my buddy, Mr. Chris Smith. Chris Smith is from the Out of Chicago conference. Chris, as you know, I was going to title this episode, what was it? What was I going to call it?
The end of Out of Chicago. And I said that might be a little
It might be a little clickbaity, a little, but from your email, that's the first thing that came to my head. I was like, the end of Out of Chicago. What the hell, right? So, but it's not technically the end of Out of Chicago for a number of reasons. So let's talk about that. First of all, for the people who may not know who Chris Smith is or what the Out of Chicago conference is, give us sort of the Wikipedia background of Out of Chicago.
Sure, I'll go super fast. I mean, we've done 5 years of photography conferences downtown Chicago, and it started with just me and a bunch of friends that were also photographers teaching architecture, street photography, and photographing Chicago. And over the years, it morphed into this huge thing, where we've had Art Wolf and Scott Kelby and you, Frederick, all as main presenters at the event, and it's grown to where we've been over 400 people and. Yeah, that's kind of the small thing, but it's always been something we wanted to be hands-on. We go out, and it's not just teaching in the classroom, but it's going out on the street shooting as well, in very small groups. And we want to be hands-on. It's an intimate thing. It's different than most other photography conferences. And really, what's kind of different is that I ran that thing before I'd ever even been to a photography conference myself, and I started to go to them. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have it in a ballroom with like 1,000 people? Like, oh, I'm doing it all wrong. But I think that I like the way that we do it.
Yeah, I like the way that you do it too. And just to echo what you said, I think part of the magic and the allure of a conference the size of Out of Chicago was the size, right? The intimacy and the access to speakers and even the vendors that you brought on board. You know, they're one of these giant $500,000, $1 million booths. It was, hey, I can shake this guy's hand and I don't have to wait in line and all this stuff. It's smaller and more intimate. Was that intimacy by design, or was it just, you know, one day when this conference gets bigger, it's going to be just like NAB, you know? what
No,
were you thinking?
I mean, I never wanted it to be a trade show, and really the reason we have vendors there at all is so you can try the latest stuff, and they let you take the equipment out onto the streets of Chicago and get, try shooting with it. So it's really, I mean, everything we're doing is looking at these attendees. How can we give them a great experience? And so having the vendors there was part of it, but I was never like, oh, let's get McCormick Center in Chicago or whatever. That's never been the plan. No.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the changes to Out of Chicago, you know, not to bury the lead, right? So, you know, we know what your history is. You come from education, and you sort of jumped off that ship into the sort of trade show. And I even hesitate to call it the trade show world. It's not, you know, it's conference, education, event kind of world. So now that you've, you know, I want to talk about the morphing. Let's push the morphing and the changes to Out of Chicago back a little bit. I want to talk about some lessons learned. You know, for the folks that are watching this, you know, I have friends like, Troy Miller, for example, is a good friend of mine. He does our critiques with us. He ran a conference called F64 Live, and he learned a lot from that conference. If you're speaking to people like him, you know, that are doing conferences, that have aspirations to do new conferences, they're going to WPPI, and you're like, man, I could do this. You know, you're in a conference hall, you get a bunch of vendors in, you hire some speakers to go stand on stage, and you make $1 million and you walk away. What would you say to those folks that are in that mindset right now?
Well, it's interesting because I talk to them all the time, and it's exciting, and I'm happy to help people that are trying to do that kind of thing. But I don't think anyone walks into WPPI and says, "Oh, I can do this." Like, you can't. But people would come to like our events or smaller events or like local camera club events and go, I think I could do this, and I could even do it better than this. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of room to do these smaller things, especially if you're talking about like a niche subject. You're not just like, let's just do photography, but you're like, let's specifically do this very niche type of photography and bring in great photographers from around the world that just specialize in that. I think there's a lot of room for that. But on the other hand, I used to be worried about always telling people like our secrets or whatever, but it's gotten to the point now where I've seen lots of people try it, kind of on their own and really have a hard time with it. We've just built everything up from that small point, and now we have so many systems in place, and I have so many people helping me that we're able to pull it off and make it look like, oh yeah, just some people are talking, no big deal. But there is a whole lot that goes on, when you're doing these things, for sure.
Yeah, and this isn't a failure of Out of Chicago, right? This is more of a, like we said at the beginning, this is a morphing into something different based on the learnings that you sort of culled from the first Out of Chicago experience. Take me through that. So people that have been to Out of Chicago, they're like, oh, I love this. This is great. And they see this video and they're like, holy crap. Of course, everything I love has to change, right? So put us at ease. Is it changing for the better, or am I going to be sad, or what's going on here?
So some people are sad, and I feel kind of bad about that because we've put on such a great event, and they really enjoyed it the way that it's been. It's just that the way we've done it just is not sustainable into the future, which is to try and have 400 people there and to try and give them all a really hands-on experience. And we've got some people going out and doing architecture. Other people, we're getting these, the Lindsay Adler dresses, and people are doing them in Millennium Park. Other people are photographing macro stuff down in the basement. And I'm trying to handle all these people. It's like we're running 6 conferences all at the same time.
Yeah.
And while we've been doing these, we've also started doing these destination conferences. We went to Acadia National Park in Maine. We went to Moab, Utah, and did night sky astrophotography. It was awesome. And we've been doing those, and we're realizing when we limit these things to like 100 people, we can give people just a really good experience, by doing that. And then the other great thing is, instead of just saying, like I said earlier, it's about photography, whatever you want to do, it's very specific. It's all landscape photography when we go there. We did one at the Chicago Botanic Garden, and this year we're going to Longwood Gardens in Philadelphia. It's only on flower photography, but we have the world's best flower and macro photographers there. Actually, one of our good friends, I talked with him this morning, Don Komarechka will be one of our instructors.
Oh, yeah, I know. I love Don.
Yeah, so we're able to put together these events where, in the past, I would even tell people, I'm like, we're putting on the most amazing thing. We've got Scott Kelby, we've got Frederick, we've got all these different people that are going to be teaching, and they're like, okay, sounds kind of cool in Chicago. And then I say, we're also doing this thing where we're only doing flower photography. And if people are into flower photography, they're like, wait, a conference just on flower photography? They're like, where do I sign up? Let's do this right now. Mm-hmm. And so that's the type of thing that people are getting really excited about, to be with 10 instructors that all do the same thing. Whereas with this huge one, I would bring in 40 instructors, and I would have people, I go, who are you here to see? They're like, I'm here to see these 2 people. I've never heard of the other 38. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. So that makes it kind of tricky.
Yeah. Well, take me through a day in the life, because it sounds like, are we moving? Is it fair to say that the Out of Chicago conference is moving from being a conference or a trade show-esque, or a mini trade show, as some people were calling it, to being more of a workshop that's focused and targeted on a specific niche? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so I didn't even say exactly what we're doing, but what we're doing is we're going with that same format for our destination conferences for our Chicago one, and it's going to only be on street photography and architecture photography. It's all about photographing the city, which was the original intention that I wanted to do. But,
yeah, I remember.
It's hard when these companies come to you and they're like, oh, we would love to sponsor a speaker, and we'd love to pay to have a table there and do all of that and help you out and sponsor the event. And we're going to send our wedding photographers. I'm like, well, we don't really do wedding photography, but it's hard to turn that away. And so that's why it kind of morphed into something different. So the plan now is to say it's just street and architecture photography right in the heart of Chicago, limited to 100 people. We have 15 of the world's best street photographers and architecture photographers coming to teach just at that event. So it's become a much more niche thing, but the kind of sad part is that, when we do that, it's more expensive than it's been in the past. So that's a big thing. But we've also now, so we've kind of split it into 2 conferences. We've got a spring conference, which is kind of the Out of Chicago annual conference. It happens in the suburbs, but now we can have all those people there. We can handle them much better than we could do downtown. It's tough, and a lot of people don't even want to go downtown because all the logistics involved there. Yeah. And now we're able to do a lot of things that we couldn't do before. We're going to do a reptile shoot. We've got people bringing frogs and lizards, and we're going to have light tents and all that set up. We're going to have dancers that you're photographing. We're going to do water drop splash photography, all sorts of really, really cool stuff. Some things we could have never done downtown, or just didn't make sense.
Yeah, I want to go now. Can we? See, it makes sense. And another thing that makes sense is when I think I interviewed you back when you were just starting Out of Chicago, right in the beginning. Yeah. I don't even know if you'd done the first conference yet. And that enthusiasm that you had then is the same enthusiasm that you have now about this new iteration. That's why I love talking to you, because you're like I was saying before we even started streaming, your enthusiasm is genuine. It's not car salesman-y enthusiasm. It's nerd enthusiasm about the next game that's coming out or something, right? So yeah. So that's really, really cool. So well, tell me this. So I want to talk about a day in the life of an attendee and what you envision their flow after they register all the way through to their on the plane back to Poughkeepsie or whatever, right? So I want to talk about that. But then, before that, I want to talk about just sort of the your perspective about the world of trade shows, and I know we talked a little bit about, WPPI and all that, but forward facing, if we're looking at 2020 or 2025, based on what's happening in the world today, like this, I'm able to stream to YouTube, to Facebook, to Twitch simultaneously right now. I'm doing all this crazy stuff from a laptop. I wasn't able to do this before, right? Laptop power's there, internet's there, bandwidth, all this stuff had to come into play for me to be able to do this. And the world is moving with it, right? So legions of people are moving over to Twitch TV. Legions of people are streaming on YouTube. Legions of people are Snapchatting and Instagramming and all that. But yet at these other conferences, you see nothing that sort of supports or holds that up. All photographers worth their salt are on Instagram, right? And they're posting on Instagram. Yet at some conferences, you see no hint of anything Instagram related. So tell me where you envisage the world going, the world of photography or this kind of photography, trade shows, education, in-person education. Where is it going in the next couple of years or so?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that just 10 years ago, if you wanted to learn from the world's best photographers, you would have to go to another town or wait until that trade show conference came to your town. You go, oh, finally, I get to see Lindsay Adler. This is going to be great. I love it. And she's my favorite. I've always followed her. And then you get to sit in this big ballroom and listen to her, and it's inspiring, and you really enjoy that kind of stuff. But nowadays, you can, I'm sure, purchase her courses. You can watch videos on YouTube. You can do all of that way. And so to bring a conference somewhere and just talk to the crowd is not the same thing as it used to be. And so I think that's the way that these events have to move. Now, for things like WPPI and Photo Plus and the big shows like that, they're really about the trade show. And to me, that's always going to be important because it's about networking. And for me, just to go to those things and to meet all these people, the instructors, that's great for me. And so I think that's always going to be true for people that want to do networking, to get to meet some people. But as far as, like local conferences, I think the future is giving people an experience that you just can't get online. And you can get really close to it. People do Facebook Lives and, hey, I'm out at Glacier National Park and I somehow have a cell phone stream and here's how I'm setting up my shot. But it's still not the same as actually going to Glacier National Park with that photographer. Yeah. So to me, it's all about the experience. And so what we're moving toward is besides the spring one where it's like all types of photography, let's just get a chance to all hang out together as a community. Our other events are all about the hands-on instruction, but in an amazing location with some of the world's best photographers from that niche. So that's what we're trying to do. And I think that people that are successful going forward are going to do similar things where they're trying to make it about an experience. That's not just a photography thing. That's like a travel thing in general. People want to go places. They want to have a foodie experience or they want whatever it is. They want to have an experience. It's not just looking at the thing anymore. And so that's what we're trying to offer too, but for people that love photography.
Yeah, because you can only, we as photographers, I think photographers, as you know, we're made up of multiple bits, right? We love technology. That's why we obsess over our gear. Depending on the ilk of photography or the genre you're in, you have to love psychology. Like if you're a wedding and portrait person, you need to know how to connect. We're business people. If you're running a business, you need to know how to bill and invoice and all that stuff. But at any given time, we are obsessing over something, right?
It's something, yeah. It's always different, but it's something.
It's something, whether it's a technique or this new lens or now it's drones or 360-degree photography or something. Something has caught our eye and we are interested in, and we want to immerse ourselves in that. And it sounds like you're applying that sort of genre lust into this physical sort of world where people can go and marinate in their genre.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Well, take me through that, Chris.
Yeah, we haven't used marinate. We usually, but I like that. We usually
it's all yours.
We usually stick with the first thing you said is it's an immersive experience. So if you're going to come to the Oregon coast with us, you're going to immerse yourself for 5 days in landscape photography. And this is the tough thing for people nowadays is like, yeah, I'm going to take my family or I'm going to go with my girlfriend or whatever, and we're going to go photograph the Oregon coast. But it's like, then you get pulled away and it's like, okay, now I got to go see the kids and okay, let's go do something to make them happy. But we're trying to give experiences for people where they're like, you know what? I just want to spend 5 days and the only thing I think about is landscape photography. I get to do it with 99 other people that are just as passionate about it as I am, and like 15 of the world's best landscape instructors, and put them all in this amazing location together. So that's what we're trying to create. And so as far as a day-to-day, you know, for something, if it's a landscape conference, and they're all different. That's the other thing I learned when I first got into this is I would talk to these conference venues and they're like, well, we assume that you'll be eating dinner at 6 o'clock. It's like, wait a minute, the light's going to be great at 6 o'clock. We're not eating dinner at 6 o'clock. Get out of here.
Right.
So they're all, I mean, it depends on what type of photography we're doing. But when we go to the Oregon coast, you're going to get up early. You're going to, go shoot the sunrise. You're going to come back. We'll have breakfast. Then we're going to do some classes in the middle of the day. Or you could go out and shoot. We'll have both options for people. And then we'll all be out shooting for sunset and the great light and even some night stuff. But come back to the conference center and do some, breakout sessions in the evening. And then the other thing is it's all immersive. It's not just teaching. It's also doing it in the field, but then it's also the third aspect is you're going to come back and you're going to get critique, and we'll go through post-processing together. And we even do things where we give people a chance to do one-on-one sessions. Everything we do, you have to sign up ahead of time. So like if you want to go out with Nick Page and you want to shoot with him, well, you have to, everyone picks their classes at a time. You'll be in that thing. No, it's not like, oh, wow, I can't believe 40 people showed up to shoot on the beach with Nick Page. No, it was limited to 8 or 10 people, and that's the number of people that go. But we also do a thing where you can sign up for a session with them, and it's just a one-on-one session. Might be 20, 30 minutes, and it's like, ask whatever you want. Do you want to know about their camera gear? Do you want to know how they got sponsored by this company? Do you want to get a critique on your images? Whatever you want. So it's a one-on-one session, however you want to look at it, whatever you want to do.
That is cool. That is cool. So tell me about the cost of this, right? And the duration. So are we looking at a daily conference, where it's, or the typical 3-day thing where you come in on say a Tuesday, and then you got Wednesday, Thursday of conference, and then parties on Friday, and then what's the flow? Or is it just a day? You come in for a day and you marinate and then you take off. What does the schedule look like?
So for the destination ones, and we're kind of starting to track them all the same just so we can get a consistent experience for people and they can know, well, when I go here, I can expect this. And so we're kind of moving everything toward this 5-day thing, especially the destination ones. You don't want to go all the way out to whatever it is, the Oregon coast, Moab, and then be like, I'm flying back home in 2 days. Like, we want to give them that chance for the immersive experience. So typically you show up on the first day, we might go shoot, but there's going to be a keynote presentation. When we went to Acadia National Park, it was Colleen Minnick-Sperry. She's the author of The Photographer's Guide to Acadia National Park. So
nice.
We bring in the people that know it better than anyone. And so she gave the keynote. It was Acadia, Bar Harbor, Maine. So we all had lobster dinner, and then we had 3 full days of shooting and learning and the critiquing and the one-on-one session. And then on the last day, it's a closing presentation. In Acadia, we had Chris Nicholson. He's the author of Photographing the National Parks. So he talked about, well, Acadia was great, but how about all the rest of them? So he talked about all the different national parks you could photograph. And we had a closing breakfast, and then everyone caught a flight home. So typically 5 days is what we do. The Chicago one is not quite the same destination. So instead of like the opening and the closing, it's just 3 jam-packed full days. It's like the 3 middle days is how we're doing the Chicago one. Or I shouldn't even call it the Chicago one. I have to relearn how we do this. It's the architecture out of Chicago Street and Architecture Photography Conference.
There you go. But that begs another question, and that's me putting on my marketing hat, right? How are you branding this, right? Because you've built this out of Chicago brand, and I've seen over the last year or so, I've seen emails that come in that are out of insert the blank,
right.
different locations that you've gone to. what's the next step for the brand? Because you're going to confuse people if it's out of Chicago, but we're going to Paris,
It's funny because I've had even like my instructors where I'm like, would you like to do, out of Oregon and be one of our instructors? And then they email me a couple months later. They're like, wait, you're the same people that do out of Chicago? I'm like, yeah, that's our company. That's what we do. So yes, it is confusing as of right now and the immediate future. The company name is Out of Chicago, and wherever we happen to go, that's going to be the brand for that particular event. So we're looking at doing like an Out of Yosemite, which would be awesome. Well, we got lots of ideas. Some secrets.
Yeah, I know. Out of San Francisco, out of Yosemite, out of Los Angeles. Let's do out of Hawaii. There you go. Done.
We've thought about that too, for sure. All these things go through your brain.
My destiny out of Tasmania. Let's go to Tasmania.
No, we're not doing Tasmania. Not anytime
Come on,
soon.
it's just a flight. Who cares?
Yeah, just a name could work.
All right. Let's wrap up a little bit. So I want to start bringing us in for a landing. One of the questions that's on my mind and on other people's minds right now will be like, that sounds great, Chris. I want to go. There's two questions: when and how much, right?
Right.
It's always those two questions.
You were asking about the how much. So I kind of got to preface it with this, which is that, maybe we shouldn't even call what we're doing conferences, because really what we're creating here is it's a workshop environment. It's like going on a workshop, but instead of going on a workshop with one instructor, you've got 15 of the world's best instructors. You go to one location with one, another with another, come back and hear a panel discussion with 4 of them, get to hang out with them at lunch. It's like they're really workshops. And so when you compare the price, you kind of got to compare it to if you were to go on a workshop. So like the Oregon one was $1,800 to sign up for that. The Chicago one this year is $1,650, but we have a $400 code. You want to make up a code right now, Frederick, to give people?
Let's do TWIP, the code TWIP.
So it's the first year we've done it this way. So we're giving $400 off. So it's $1,250 if you want to come to that. But it's 3 jam-packed days. It's all the world's best architecture and street photographers. Really going to be an amazing experience. We have Jason M. Peterson. He is over 1 million followers on Instagram. He's a Chicago guy. It's all black and white, and it's architecture and street together. His stuff is amazing if you're not one of those millions of people that follow him. And then Thorsten Overgaard, regarded as one of the best street photographers in the world, is coming in from Denmark to be one of our instructors. So it's not just like, hey, let's get some Chicago people together. Like, we have people coming from all over the world to teach at this thing. So you can find out about it. Just go to outofchicago.com. It has all those. The Chicago one's the end of June 28th through the 30th. We do have the spring conference for those people that just want to come and experience tons of different types of photography. That's at the end of April 27th and 28th. And then our other ones, I keep talking up Oregon. I shouldn't have done that. Like, that's totally sold out, and we have kind of a long wait list. But, we always get a lot of cancellations. So if you want to put your name on the wait list, you can do that. All those instructions are on Out of Chicago. And then the Longwood Garden one, and we're going to Costa Rica. The Costa Rica one's, this one's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but this is our first wildlife photography conference going to Costa Rica, the Osa Peninsula, out in the remote wilds. We have Steve Perry and Lisa Langell and Ann Belmont, our flower photographer. So we're going to be doing wildlife, flowers, all sorts of stuff, and I'll be there helping people too. So that one's going to be cool. That one's even smaller. So expect only like 15, 20 people on that one. But still, lots of different instructors.
Man,
what was your other question? You said cost? I said it.
Yeah. You covered it all. Right. Timing and cost. And the whole thing sounds exciting. And I want to go on every single one. I want to go on all these. This is really cool, man. So congratulations on this. And doing stuff like this, I know I can appreciate it. Maybe an inch more than other people when you're doing these sorts of ongoing things that you put your heart and soul into it. It's hard to shift and turn a corner and say, well, it's time to change the way that we're doing this thing and do it a little differently, notwithstanding the numbers, right? To all those people that have been before, I'm sorry that it's different, that it's not the same thing. It's just that, we could keep offering it the same way, but we really wouldn't
make money from it. I don't know. Is that too honest? I don't know.
No, it's not. There's no such thing.
I mean,
we need more honesty these days. So, when you look at that, part of the morphing away from the traditional conference thing, does that mean, the old school let's call it old school conference things like the keynote opening and closing keynotes, right? And you had some sort of celebrities up there opening and closing the let's call it Out of Chicago version 1.0. Is there going to be a similar thing to that, or is it just, hey, we're going to meet up, we're going to have some drinks tomorrow morning, wheels up at 7 a.m., we're out and hitting the pavement? What's the flow?
No, it's like I said. I mean, when we go to the Longwood conference, we'll have an opening speaker. It's John Barclay, one of my favorite creative photographers. Brian Peterson will be there. Tony Sweet, Ann Belmont, who I talked about, our flower photographer, she'll give the closing. So there's still an opening and a closing where everyone at the whole event, which is 100 people plus 15 instructors plus, I don't know, 4 or 5 staff people for me, will all be in one room. And yeah, it is an opening and a closing, and it's meant to be very inspirational. Now let's get out there and do this for the week. But we have so many other breakouts that are smaller too. So it's definitely still organized. It's just that we don't have, like last year we had Scott Kelby, and it was 300-400 people, and that was awesome. It was a big, huge lecture hall, but it wasn't like you could even do questions at the end of it. And I mean, we just want to create this intimate experience. That
was your sort of true, like the old school keynotes is sort of your true one-to-many with no chance for any kind of interaction. Sounds like you're changing that as well, man. So this is going to be exciting. I'm excited to see what the rest of 2019 and in 2020 holds for you. Let's check in again, and like I said, you're invited to come on This Week in Photo whenever you want.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. But now, as the dates get closer, I want to check in with you and see how things are going, and then post event, I want to check in with you and see how it went. See how many more gray hairs have manifested up there.
Oh my goodness, yeah, especially compared to, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, cool.
You know what? Hey, you want like the epitome of honesty here?
Sure, bring it.
I mean, this could be the after, and you know what? Going into this, we had to be kind of okay with this, and that is that, we've got these great discounts going on this street and architecture photography conference, and it's gonna be an amazing experience. This will be our 6th year of the thing, but now we're doing it for just 100 people, and we're gonna get into private locations no one's ever been, all that stuff. But the epitome of the honesty is, if this isn't an event that people are excited about doing it this way, then like March 22nd is when that, in 11 days, is when those codes run out. And if we don't have enough people to make the event run at that point, we're going to have to say, it's just not going to work this year. And that's going to be even more sad. But it's possible that, right now we're totally on track for it. But if all of a sudden people stop signing up, then, and we're just going to put all our fuel into the things that people are super, super excited about. So there we go. And my team's going to get really mad. Why'd you even say that, Chris? But there you go.
Honesty is the best policy. But that's good, though. I mean, and it sounds like you're nimble, because you couldn't do that with a conference. Once you're committed with a conference and there's a venue and there's caterers and all this other stuff locked down and exhibitors coming in, you're kind of on a one-way train track, and you can't turn the engine off, right? Whether you're going to make money or not. Either you're going to eat it at the end or have a party at the end.
Which we've done both.
I'm not going to ask you on which event. So your team was like, please don't ask him. Please don't ask him.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's cool, man. So TWIP 10, or not TWIP 10, just TWIP for a discount code, right?
Yep. And there's $400 off for that one. And actually, if you want to use, I'll put it on for the spring one too, which is only $299 for the full weekend, and we get $50 off that. So yeah, wherever you find a place to say put in a code, put in, and it'll do something.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Chris Smith, thank you so much, man, for coming on. And you have the honor of, this is, like I said before we start streaming, this is the first time, speaking of
I wonder if it actually worked.
It worked. I've been checking while we were talking. This is an example of a direction shift, right? So not that TWIP is doing a right angle turn, but we're sort
Something
of
new.
we're shifting and doing more. People want live streaming. They want interaction. Not that I interacted much with the chat during this one, because
We're just getting started, right,
I
Frederick?
just want to make sure everything's working right now. But yeah, I mean, we for this episode of TWIP, we were streaming live to YouTube, to 2 YouTube channels. We were streaming live to Facebook and to Twitch.tv simultaneously in HD and glorious 1080 across the board, hopefully. So
when the kids ask me, are you on Twitch? We're like, absolutely. Yeah,
now
that's
you
me.
are. Exactly. Anybody under a certain age, if you say the word Twitch, they're gonna be like, "Is that Twitter thing? Is that 140 characters or is it 280 now?" I don't know. So,
Yeah.
No, it's cool. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right, Chris Smith. Take care, man.
Thanks, Frederick.
This is TWIP.